Okay, so today I want to talk about variable scope. We need to continue on with some methods. Last time we talked about methods, that was a week ago or so, I guess. And we talked about defining a block of code that's going to be used at some future date, right? All this did was define the code. It never actually ran this code here, never executed this. So what do we call these things inside of this? Parameters or arguments, either one. And when we actually execute that method, we're just calling the name of the method, and we can pass into it some arguments or parameters. So these values that I pass into my hello method get put into the local variable called first name. And this is local only to this method. That means that I cannot print out the value of first name. You have to think of these little methods as black boxes. The only way in and out of them is to pass a parameter into the black box, and it can turn around and do something with that data. And then the only way to get information out of it is to return that data back out of the method. So the methods only have this one little window in and a one little window out. Everything else that I create inside of that method is local only to that method. If I create new variables in there, they are only seen inside the method. The scope of that variable, that's the computer sciencey word, is local to that method. So I can't go out here and say puts first name, right? If I try to run that, I get an error saying that undefined local variable or method first name. Nowhere in the main program do I have a variable called first name. That is only defined for this little piece of code here, and the rest of the program can't see into that black box. You can't see into a definition like that. Okay? Does that make sense so far? So if I created some other variables in here, I might say I have a products this is a shirt, and if I try to print that value out, I can do anything I want inside of the method. I can print out products. But if I want to do that outside of the method here, nowhere in my main program have I defined a variable called products. So I can't use a variable until I've defined it in some way. So I'll get the same error. I should get, actually, let's take this one out where I won't see the error. It crashes on the first error. So now I get undefined local variable products. Products is local to the method and not visible to the main program. All right? So if I have created this products outside of the method, let's say at the top of my program, I created this little variable called products, and I try to print that inside of my method, what's going to happen? It can't see it either. In hello, undefined local variable or method products. They are completely separate programs. They don't see each other at all. The method can't see out, and the main program can't see into these little black boxes. They have no way of seeing that, right? Unless you put a little dollar sign symbol, right. So this is what I don't want you to do ever in your lifetime. There is a way of calling this a global variable. If I put a dollar sign in front of this, then the name of the variable now has to have a dollar sign all the way through, and that gets rid of the error. But the problem is now that's a global variable. That means the scope is such that all of the methods can now see that variable. It's as if I passed it into the little black box. Okay? But it's a bad programming practice, which is why you rarely see this in a Ruby code. It's probably even hard to find how to create a global variable on the web. People don't use global variables if at all possible. It's considered a bad programming practice because this now makes this variable available across a multitude of files even. This variable now is available. If I had a bunch of programs side by side, that variable would then be visible across all the methods across my entire function of library of functions and methods. And you forget where it was originally defined. It goes against the object-oriented programming principles, so we just don't do it. So that's a bad way to fix that. So if I want to get products into my hello method here, how would I do that? I have to pass it through the window, right? I have to get it into the box somehow. The only way to do that is to pass it when I call hello here. I can pass the value of my products into all of my methods. And I need a place to receive it. Yeah. All right, thanks. So I need a way to receive that variable, and I can call it the same thing or not. It doesn't matter. But when I call this, Dave string goes into first name. The value of products goes into this local copy, this local variable called products, and then I can use that variable inside of this method. Now, does that help? Does that make sense so far? Now this should work fine as if I did the global variable, but it doesn't have a global variable. I'm passing the data into the method, doing something with it, getting some data back out, and printing it to the screen. And I can call this whatever I want locally, but the value it stays the same. It doesn't change the program. The value of products, which is this entire string, gets stuffed into the variable called P, and then I do something with that P inside of my method.
So, like where it says hello Dave, comma products, what is products in that case? Is it a variable?
It's a variable containing whatever was put into it up here. So in this case, what type of variable is products? It's a string because I assigned it a string. So products down here is the same thing. It's the value of what was stuffed into it.
So where your puts P, that's FT is the string.
It carries through the same data type passing into the parameters here.
In C# you have to declare what data
Right.
pass through.
Right.
That's what
It is awesome because I can do things like this. I can print, notice how I printed this array here? And it says hello 1, 2, 3. I don't have to, in C#, I would have to create another method that accepted an array as the first parameter. And then I'd have to create another method that accepted a hash as the first parameter. And I'd have to, it just goes crazy. This is so much nicer, in my opinion.
If you're a string, pass it through 18 different steps, and that 18th step, you can't figure out whether it's a string or a variable or an array or whatever.
But it doesn't matter. In Ruby, it doesn't matter. In Ruby, we think of variables differently. We think of them as what I can do with them. Okay? The concept is if it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. So if I have a variable and I can do stringy type things with it, then I call it a string. But a string has a lot of the same methods that an array object has. And so I can call a 2s method on an array, a hash, a string, anything, and it doesn't affect, I don't have to have separate methods for any of that. So it makes it very variable. I know that's a whole other level, but you don't like it. You're very structured. You want to be structured, right? Yeah.
In fact, I've been doing everything I possibly can in my code to make it look like code.
That's where you're taking the wrong step there. You got to start thinking like a real programmer. And just kidding. Yeah, right. All C#, that's a very structured language. C, C++, all of those came from very structured. JavaScript came from the C language family, but it is a little bit less structured. It allows some conversion, automatic conversions between variable types. Ruby is very loosely typed, because if I call this products up here, and then later on, before I actually do something with it, I could turn it into an array containing a string. And now products is an array. It doesn't matter. My method should still work fine. See that? It has no difference, because I can call the toS method. This puts method actually calls the toS method on whatever object this is. So it's going to call p.toS, and in this case, p is an array now, because I called it an array. If I did what?
Wanted to add 16.3 to p.
Inside of here?
Because it's a string, it's going to. It's just going to be concatenated.
Yeah.
So it does matter.
It matters in some cases, sure. But in a lot of cases it doesn't, especially for these printing things. But it does matter in some cases, yeah. But as you get into the classes and stuff we'll deal with next quarter, it just makes things so nice. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. You just have to worry about whether I can do a method. I can call a method on that object. Whole different way of thinking than C#. I agree with that. All right, any other questions on the scope? Does that make sense? How do I get data out of this method back into the real world? Well, I call the method, but what if I create something like this? How do I get that value sum after I call my add method? So I call my add, and I say puts sum. What's going to happen? It won't, because sum is in the main program not defined. It's defined locally here, but that's local inside the little black box. Nobody else can see it. So when I run it, that just goes away. It doesn't do anything for me. I'm trying to, again, access this variable sum. It's local to add. It doesn't have any meaning outside of that method. So how do I get the data out of this method? I have to use return, right? So I return the value of sum. Let's do it differently so I won't confuse you guys. I'll return the value of sum, and that's a way of passing the data back out of the little black box to the real world to do something with. So now add 2 and 2 returns something, so I can take that data and do something with it. I might have a variable called sum and add that, take the returned value from that, stuff it into the variable called sum, and then I could print that out. All right? So if I run it again, no problems. I get 4. It added the 2 values together, stored it in sum, returned the value of sum to whoever called my method, which was in this case here. What would happen if I took this out completely? First of all, sum is not defined, so I'll get an error there. So let me just take that out. But what do I get out on the screen? Nothing, because my add, all it does was take the 2 values and return it, but I'm not doing anything with that return. This is as if I'm doing something like this. I'm assigning it to what? Nothing. So I can't do anything with that value. All right? So I need to assign that to some variable before I can actually utilize that value. And then the value, I can print that value out if I want. Okay? If I did this here, if I took S equals this, and I printed S here, now I get 4 and XY. And because the addition of 2 strings is a concatenation, it's returning a string with the X and Y. Remember that? In C#, I'd have to write 2 different methods for that. Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to overload it. This is automatically overloaded based on this plus sign is automatically overloaded. Okay, so what happens if I eliminate this puts and storing it into a variable, and I just call puts? What's going to happen? Anybody? Take a venture? You think so? All right, remember in methods that this is as if I'm calling the method here. This executes a bunch of lines of code, and the result of that gets put into place of whoever called it. So this is it's like a very temporary variable is created here with the return value, and it will print that out to the screen. So this works exactly the same way for an XY, because I didn't specifically assign it to a variable, but this gets called, and in this place where I call the method gets put the value of sum. So it's as if I said puts 4.
Could you put a stop in front of that?
What do you mean?
Just so you can see where it goes.
Hey. Oh, because I haven't debugged since I have the new image. Let's pause. Good, it should show up. All right, so I finally installed the gem, and let's. It stopped right here before calling the add method, and let's put another breakpoint inside of the add method, and let's go step into, and it goes into the method, the add method, and if you look down here, this is what they call the stack. This is the main program is called methods. That's my main program, methods.rb. I went into a method that's inside of my Ruby file, and so it keeps track of that on what they call a stack. This is the main program. This is now inside of a function. If that function called another function, it would be one more level down. And the stack is what keeps track of where to go once this method returns. When this returns, it's going to take this off the stack and go back to the methods line at the same point where I started. So it knows how to get back to the main program right there by this stack process. So now sum, I can look at this. Sum has nothing in it. I step over, and sum now has the value of 4. I'm going to return the value of 4. Step over. I come back to this. 4 is replaced, and the puts got called, so it put it out of 4. Let's look at our console. Print it out to 4, and then it's going to go through the puts here again. So if I step again, it's going to go into the method. The stack changes again. Stepping over, return. Notice the stack came off. I'm now in my main program, and it continues on. All right? So let's show you some more stuff to blow your mind then. I can do this. All right, let's just do that for now. So what is that going to print out? All right, so let's trace it through. It's going to take and do the inside of the parentheses first. It's going to add these 2 and 2 together. That 2 goes into the A, the 2 goes into the B, it adds them up, returns it. And so this then gets effectively replaced with what the return of sum was. So that you could think of it as the program executes, that this add gets replaced by a 4, right? And then this add gets called, happens to be the same value. It gets replaced by a 4. Then it calls add again with these 2 values, and that's going to get replaced by an 8. And now we print out the 8. See how that works? So I can call add within add within add, and it's just a way of simplifying my main code, because I don't have to do this sum, everything. So let's put a breakpoint inside of here and see if we can run this and see some of the values. I got a problem. I don't have enough parentheses. All right. All right, so the first time I'm coming in with a 2 and a 2. Actually, let's stop it so you can see which one is a 3 and a 3. All right, how about that? So the first time we come through, it's a 2 and a 2. An A has a 2 and a B has a 2, so it's doing this one first. So it's doing left to right, furthest into the parentheses that we can go. So that's going to return a 4, and I continue on. The next time it's going to do the 3 and the 3, and that's going to return a 6. And notice the stack here. Then I run again. It's going to call the add method again with a 6 and a 4. The values of these two added and these two added. So that's going to be 10. Run it again. I'm going to call the add with a 10 and the 8, and that'll be the final one. It'll print out 18. All right, well, that's the X and Y. All right, so if I look at my console, I get 18. So these methods, you can do lots of stuff with methods. It makes your code more readable because I'm not replicating the same thing across my code. So for instance, one really useful function would be to have a method called list products, perhaps. And you might pass into it what? For your assignment. What am I going to pass into that method? The hash, my products hash, right? Products. And inside of here, I can do my products.each, do key value, whatever, and print out the value of my hash so that later on in my program, all I have to do is call this list products every time I want to print out the hash. And I don't have to redo that code. I write the code once, and it works wonderfully for me. It eliminates errors because I only have one place I have to change in my program rather than 15. And don't use global variables anymore. Now that I've told you not to, don't use them. No, that's not the answer. Definitely not the answer. Any other questions? It's good that you found a way around it. It's just the wrong way around it, but that's okay. You found a way. All right, go away.